All right, Steve-O's finished with the copy.
I'm from Jersey. Are you from Jersey? And we're back!
Before I begin, would you like to touch my monkey? Touch him! Love him! Leave him meine Abstinky!
Carol!
Hey, girlfriend! Why does everybody think it's a homo game?
Because I'm not that strong and swift.
What are you doing here, Devin?
Sometimes when I get nervous, I stick my fingers under my arms, and then I smell them like that.
And I live in a van down by the river.
I sorry I can't help you, but I told you before. Chicken make lousy hubcap.
That's very wise, canteen boy.
You like it, the juice, eh?
Daily.
Sorry.
Get off the shed! Get off the damn shed!
Oh, shit, you talked during the candle thing.
God damn it. I was going to turn off my heater, and now it's on. You're going to hear a vroom sound through the whole thing.
All right, we'll turn it off. I'll edit this out.
No, it's all the way over in the other part of the room, and we're already talking.
Oh, now the heater is canon to this episode.
You're just going to hear it now. Is it bad? Is it bothering you?
No, it's in the background, but I could probably isolate it and get rid of it when I edit this together. All right.
That's going to be on you.
Well, I'm sorry. The can was open, so the podcast started. That's how these things work.
You are... we got to talk about this, because you are a little too flippant with your can opening. You're like, oh, we're ready, right? We're ready. Fuck. It's happened multiple times, and it's like, I wasn't necessarily ready.
I always give you, hey, you ready? And then I open the can real quick before you can answer.
Exactly. You don't give me any fucking time. So I was going to say, oh no, let me turn off my heater. Can't do it now.
That's all right. Welcome to Saturday Night Heater, where we talk about Saturday Night Live and Saturday Night Live related movies. This week we're talking about Saturday Night Live. This is our And We're Back segment. Last week we were talking about Joey Mack. This week it's Uncle Roy, a Buck Henry recurring character from the first 5 seasons. You are completely unfamiliar with Uncle Roy, correct?
Other than what you told me last week, apparently he is a pedophile of some sort.
Yeah, that's the joke of his character, is that he likes to fuck little girls.
Yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be a fun experience for all of us. Can only guess that this is probably a Michael O'Donoghue sketch.
I don't know, but now that you say that, yeah, probably. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things I've discovered across this podcast, just how much I feel like I wouldn't have liked Michael O'Donoghue as a person while he was alive.
You know, I don't think you're alone in that sentiment. I think conventional or the collective mindset now is kind of anti-Michael O'Donoghue.
I've always been curious to read the original script to Scrooge, because apparently he either wrote or co-wrote that, but was very incensed by the final product because it wasn't as dark and edgy as his original draft. And I want to know what that original draft was like. And I'm curious. I'm assuming it would be like pure shit compared to the classic movie that Scrooge did.
Yeah, it's weird that we're talking Michael O'Donoghue because at the moment I am in the midst of season 7 of SNL for my my blogs, which is the year after the Charles Rocket season. But Dick Ebersol took over and he hired Michael O'Donoghue as the head writer until he was fired mid-season. Because the first couple episodes of season 7 are weird.
I mean, are they weird in the way that I would expect from Michael O'Donoghue specifically? Are they needlessly cynical and dark, like sketches that only seem to exist to shock for the sake of shock value?
Yeah, there's a couple of those where you're like, I think they just wanted to be edgy, but forgot to be funny.
Because that's what I associate with Michael O'Donoghue. And when you told me this sketch, that's the first thing I thought of was like, oh, this is just so that we can have a sketch about a pedophile because people might find that disturbing.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and then I've never seen the first 2, or I probably have, but I came across this character when I was reviewing season 5 for my blogs, and I was gobsmacked watching it. I was like, what the fuck why did they ever think this was funny? And then I was even more shocked when I realized it was a recurring character, and I was watching the 3rd installment. And I was like, wait, they did this before and decided to do it again?
And the one thing I just to kind of preface it before we start these, what I'm kind of looking forward to is whether or not there is anything more to the premise other than him being a pedophile and that being the joke, because at the end of this we've tacked on, well, there's a Fred Garvin male prostitute just to watch it, but we also tacked on a fairly recent sketch that is one of my favorites of the last few years, which happens to involve pedophilia as a plot point of the sketch, and that the shockingness of that is part of the joke, but it is within the context of a larger premise that is funny, that would be funny even if you toned that aspect down. And I've also often talked about the Rock sketch where he's the mad scientist with the molester robot. Like, both of these sketches, like, yes, they have that element, and you could say, oh, that's shocking, and maybe you don't want to do a sketch about that. But at least they're, like, that's not why they're funny. They're funny for another more nuanced and deeper reason. And, like, is there going to be that kind of nuance and depth in the sketch, or probably not? Yeah,
kid fucking is a very tight, or a small tightrope that you need to walk when you're doing that with comedy. And like I said, I'm not super familiar with the first two Uncle Roy sketches, so I'm curious to see how they handled it, at least in the first one. I remember just thinking the third one was in bad taste, but I wasn't in on the joke that this had happened before. And yeah, I forgot to mention, we're watching 3 Uncle Roy sketches, and then I've also tacked on Fred Garvin, male prostitute, because he was not a recurring character.
But should have been.
And there was only 3 Uncle Roy sketches, so I figured we'd do something else. And then we put on the Switcheroo sketch from the John Mulaney hosted episode, just to tie into the themes of pedophilia. So it's going to be a fun podcast.
Yeah, and by the way, if this in fact is Michael O'Donoghue, as I suspect it is, I'm going to guess it doesn't walk that tightrope very well, because in addition to being, shocking for the sake of shocking, I also associate him with just being very sloppy as a writer and just kind of ending with bothering people and not necessarily trying to be funny.
Okay, nope, I just Googled it, so we didn't sound like idiots. Uncle Roy was 3 sketches all written by Rosie Schuster and Ann Beats.
Oh, so I mean, I don't know them specifically, but who knows? Maybe this won't be as shitty as I was expecting.
Yeah, no, and I'm right with you, and I don't know what to expect, because like I said, I didn't watch season 4 yet for my blogs, so I have no idea what we're in for from... Let's jump into the first sketch, which is from season 4, episode 5. All of these episodes hosted by Buck Henry. All right, let's... Uncle Roy, here we go.
What have you got against Roy Fogle?
I don't know. Any 5-year-old bachelor or 45-year-old bachelor who, has nothing to do but babysit. I just think it's kind of weird, that's all.
Well, anyway, the kids adore him.
Yeah.
Hi, Roy, come on in.
Hi, folks.
Oh, Arthur and I really appreciate you coming over at the last minute.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love babysitting.
Kids, guess who's here?
I'm gonna go warm up the wagon.
Tracy, Terry, 5 minutes and then you go to bed. Don't bother Uncle Roy. Goodbye, kids. Goodbye.
Bye. Don't hurry back. We're just fine.
Yeah, did you bring us?
Ah, Uncle Roy's got a surprise for you.
What is it? We want it now.
Well, it's a buried treasure.
Is it buried in the lawn?
No, it's buried on Uncle Roy. Work the pants. That's it.
Okay, and we're back.
Oh my god, can we stop this? Can we not do this? I don't want to do this anymore.
Man, that was uncomfortable.
Oh my god, that was worse than all of Joey Mac. That was worse than Canteen Boy. That was worse than Ching Chang. This is the worst thing we've ever fucking watched in Saturday Night Live related.
Yeah, it might be. I had the same reaction watching that I did when I first watched it, which I was like, this is just, this should not be on television. Like this, what's the point of this? What is this trying to say? Is it trying to be funny? Is it trying to be like, look out for your uncle, PSAE? I can't tell.
It's funny. Before our podcast, I texted you a poop emoji, and we were talking about Sir Patrick Stewart because of the Emoji Movie. And through this entire sketch, I was the Picard meme. My hand just clutching my head as fucking. Oh my god! I barely watched half of this because I was just like, I couldn't fucking look at the
Yeah,
screen.
all right. So let's set it up for the listening audience. Buck Henry plays Uncle Roy. Well, first, before Uncle Roy shows up, I did like the dig at Dan or Chevy Chase, who had just left the show.
Was it a dig, though? I just thought it was a reference. I thought it was more supportive.
I guess, yeah.
Like, hey, go see his movie.
I guess it was more of a reference. Yeah, they're like, let's go see Foul Play. I want to see that comedian who falls down. And then Dan Aykroyd flubs his line where he calls Uncle Roy a 5-year-old bachelor. And then goes, 45-year-old bachelor.
Which, I mean, if Uncle Roy was 5 years old for some reason, I don't know if that would have made the sketch better or worse, but...
I think you can pedophile up. I think a baby can have sex with a young girl, and it's okay.
And, okay, we'll get to it. I was going to tell you, talking about the girls, Gilda Radner. Who's the other girl? The other actress?
Lorraine Newman.
That's Lorraine Newman. I, for some reason, like, I've seen her before, and, like, her face keeps leaving my brain. Like, every time I see Lorraine Newman, it's as if for the first time, and I'm like, oh, that's Lorraine Newman.
I used to have that same thing until I started watching these older seasons of the show, and she's come around, like, I think she was my favorite of the female cast. Like, I think she outranks Gilda for me.
Well, she was the original daughter in the Coneheads, right? Remember her face. And, I mean, I guess... everybody acquits themselves well enough in the sketch insofar as they are doing what they're supposed to do and they convey the ideas. It's just that the ideas are so bad.
Yeah, and they are playing it for well, again, hold on, we didn't set it up. So Uncle Roy shows up to babysit his nieces and immediately starts, Pervo 3000. He asks them to search for buried treasure, which is hidden in his pants. What's Rubby Dubby Do?
That's when he's making the coins disappear. He's doing a magic trick.
Yeah.
And I think he makes one disappear up her vagina?
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to make these coins disappear. So he rubs it on Gilda's shoulder. And then he's like, and I'm going to make the other coin disappear. And he puts the coin down on Lorraine's crotch and rubs it. Then they take it upon themselves to lift up their nighties to show their underpants. Uncle Roy's taking pictures. He says it's wash day, so he asks for all their dirty little undies.
Your trick reminds me that it's wash day today.
Wash day,
so
yeah.
Why don't you girls go on upstairs and bring Uncle Roy all your dirty little things? That's it. Yes. Littler things, dirtier things. That's it. Oh, yes.
And then they play horsey. They play doggy, where he acts like a dog, and they spank him. And then Jane Curtin calls from a car phone that existed in 1978, apparently, and says they're coming home early. So he puts the kids to bed, and then he just sits on the couch and just looks at his pictures fondly. So, yeah, there's no comeuppance for him. He's never found out. He's just like, yeah, the creepy uncle was getting away with it.
In the sketch's defense, this was the 70s. They could have stopped at a payphone.
But no, not in that quick. It's a 6-minute sketch, and Jane Curtin leaves and comes back to the house twice. And then at the end, it's like, we're on our way home. They wouldn't have even gotten out of the garage.
And I don't know if this, just on a premise level, structurally makes the sketch better or not. Because the implication of the sketch is that this isn't the first time this stuff has happened. The girls know of all these games beforehand. So
he mentions games that they played last week, too.
So, and in the context, well, I don't know, because in the context of the events of the sketch, he doesn't actually actively have sex with them. It's just weird, like, pervy, teasy games. So is the implication that it never graduates to actual sex, or would it have had it not been stopped by the phone call, and that's just another game that they play that, like, is it never as bad as I think it might be? Or is it just this, like, these are the games that are foreplay, and then, like, later in the night, his plan was to actually just fuck these little girls?
Well, like, I mean, I'm surprised that this got on the air at all. Like, this passed the censors in 1978, but I'm sure there's no way in hell they could broach the subject of actually molestation of a child. So, yeah, they don't say anything like that as what his motives are, but, like, come on. You think he's just like, let's play doggy and then we'll go to bed and I'll sit downstairs on the couch? No, there's no fucking way he's doing that.
Yeah, and it just... Because, like, but that's the thing. Even if it ended where I'm saying, like, let's say that it never does graduate beyond what we see in the sketch, it's still not good.
No. And it's so bizarre because they're playing it for laughs, right?
Yeah, but and like the audience is laughing and clapping, and like I'm gobsmacked. I'm going, why the fuck are you approving of this?
Yeah, they think all this stuff is funny, which is really weird to me because, like, I knew this sketch didn't end with, like, him actually fingering one of his nieces or something. But, like, the live audience wouldn't have known that. So where do they think this sketch is going? Like, are they like, okay, let's get to the punchline here where he whips out his dick? Like, what would you think is happening if you saw this live? You're at a live comedy show and you're watching this uncle creepily molest his nieces.
And as it goes on, and it becomes even more and more apparent that there isn't not going to be a turn. Because, like, and that's what I kept thinking, like, is there some kind of turn that this sketch could take to justify what's been happening? Like, something where he is revealed and punished for his action. I can't conceive of the exact nature of what that would be, but is there some way they could have saved this at any point? And I don't think there is.
Yeah, no, I have no idea where this sketch was going, and I don't know where it could have gone. I mean,
like, there are so many sketches where we watch them and go like, oh, if they'd only done this or this or this, it could have been a fun sketch. I have nothing for this.
Yeah, well, because the main premise of the sketch, like, the joke is, it's funny that this uncle is playing sex games with his nieces. Like, but I mean, but I guess in the show's defense and maybe in the writer's defense, the show wasn't always funny back in this day. Like, it was much different than where it is now, where it's like, okay, here's the clear premise of the sketch we're doing. Like, sometimes they would just do sketches of just people's lives, you know? And, like, they weren't funny. It was just like a couple having an argument, and it was just like a mini play. Maybe that's what this is, but no, the way everyone's performing this sketch makes it seem like it's supposed to just be funny that he's going to diddle his nieces.
And the fact that the audience is fucking laughing.
Yeah, no, they're on board for it.
Yeah, this all around, this, like, made me hate, like, the 70s. Just thinking about, like, this is what people found funny in the 70s. Maybe, like, humanity has been on the decline longer than I thought. Jesus.
No, this was fucked up, man. And I don't know what can be said about it. But hey, you want to see another one?
Well, before I get to that, I do want to say, what is more fucked up to you? The performance of Buck Henry as the pedophile, or the performance of Gilda Radner as them as the kids?
Yeah, no, that was weirding me out too.
Because, yeah, I feel like the fact, like, them being so excitable and into it, because you're constantly reminded of the reality of this situation where, you know, that, I mean, it's abuse, and it's generally not something that little girls find good and fun. It's something that traumatizes them. And, like, it's just the idea that, like, this almost, in a way, it almost justifies the behavior, because it's like, see, they like it. They like fucking Uncle Roy.
Yeah.
And, like, that's the worst part of it to me.
And now knowing that it was written by two women writers, is there something we're missing here? Like, maybe there's something we're missing.
Is there a layer of critique that, if there is, it went by my head completely. I just kept thinking of our mother, who had this experience. She had a creepy uncle. And, like, I think if she watched this, it would fucking trigger her, and she'd just be like, she'd have to turn it off.
Oh, yeah, don't let Mom watch Uncle Roy.
Because I remember she watched that fairy tale movie, Into the Woods, and the scene with Johnny Depp as the weird, like, kind of molesty wolf. Like, she was, like, having flashbacks, like, I can't believe they fucking put that in a movie. If she watched this, she'd freak the fuck out.
Oh, well, yeah, I remember when we were kids, the scene in Airplane with, you ever seen a grown man naked? Yeah, that was not funny to her. She did not like that.
And that's and again, I mean, I don't think art needs to necessarily be so mindful of personal experience to that extent where, like, you can't broach subjects like this just in the abstract. I don't think art should necessarily say, like, oh, for fear of people being triggered like that. I think you can and should still make art, but you got to be mindful of how you're doing it and what you're doing, and and not fucking condoning it as I believe this sketch does.
Yeah, well, I mean, because he gets away with it.
Not only does he get away with it, there is no point in the sketch where his behavior is ever presented or called out or in anything as in any way bad. He's fun Uncle Roy from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, there's at no point does either Gilda or Lorraine like question what they're doing. You know, they're just having fun, and yeah, it implies that he's done this before and will do it again.
Like, I'm just trying to think of like in the writers' room, like whoever they pitched this sketch, and fucking Buck Henry was in the thing. Oh yeah, no, that's fucking great. I want to play that character, and that's a hilarious joke. The fact that I want to fuck these little girls, isn't that fucking funny? Well, how did this get produced? How did this get picked?
I was gonna say, unless like something was lost in translation, maybe where it wasn't supposed to be a funny sketch, and they just like played it for comedy. Because yeah, as soon as Uncle Roy walks in, yeah, it's a comedic sketch. You know, it's no different than fucking if he walked into the Coneheads. It's just Uncle Roy's here, yeah.
I feel like the non-funny sketches that you're talking about tend to start differently and they're structured differently, where you kind of recognize right away that that's what it is. We had one in one of the episodes, I think, didn't we? Where it was like a diner or something, or some kind of business where the couple had divorced and they were still running the business.
The Bill Murray episode, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fine for what it is, but like, I kind of knew right away that it was different than a normal sketch. It starts like a normal sketch, and by virtue of the fact that we're about to watch a second one, they went, that was so great, we gotta fucking do it again, and then again. Holy fucking shit.
Yeah, you know, wild. So yeah, let's go to appearance number 2 of 3 of Uncle Roy. This one from the same season. This is season 4, episode 20.
Wait, he hosted twice in one season?
I believe he did that twice. Yeah, Buck Henry and Steve Martin back in the original years were kind of like the de facto like hosts. You know,
like they can't find another host, so we get Buck Henry.
Yeah, Buck Henry would just show up to the point where I think like in later seasons, they would make jokes where like they would walk backstage and Buck Henry would be standing there like, huh?
Hey, I'm ready. Do you need me to play Uncle Roy again?
Yeah, as he did in season 4, episode 20, Buck Henry and Bette Midler episode.
Now just settle down for the night. There, little girl. There's time for you both to get tucked in.
Tickles. Come on, we want our story. Yeah.
Okay. Now, did I ever tell you the story of the wicked tickle maniac?
No, tell us.
Once upon a time, in the kingdom of Ickle Pickle, there lived a wicked tickle maniac who tickled so many little girls that the judge sentenced him to tickle jail. But he escaped and went on to a rampage throughout the kingdom, and there was only one thing little girls like you could do to stop him.
What's that, Uncle Roy?
Get their little jump ropes and tie him up. Oh no! I feel a tickle fit coming on!
Oh no, Joanne! Wicked tickle maniac! We better get our jump rope out!
I hope they don't tie me up with their little jump ropes! Next they'll be beating me about hitting me with things! I don't know what they'll do! But what Terry and Tracy didn't realize was the wicked tickle maniac could still cry out for help because they forgot to put their little socks in his mouth and secure them with their little pink ballet tights.
And we're back.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, no, this is no bueno, man. This is like the worst fucking thing. At least he's into like weird kinky S&M shit. So like at the end of this sketch, he makes the girls tie him up and put their socks in his mouth. So it's like, okay, maybe we're establishing that he's not diddling them.
Okay, my question to you: what do you think happened here? Do you think this is like they wrote a much longer original Uncle Roy sketch where before the phone call they went up to the bedroom and did all this shit? Like it was all one sketch and they were like, it's too long, we gotta cut it. And then they were like, we can't waste this great Uncle Roy material in the bedroom. It's gold. We gotta do a second sketch.
Luckily, Buck Henry's hosting again. That's them blowing off the dust of their Uncle Roy sketch.
Oh my god, what the fuck? It's the exact same fucking sketch! It's just in a different location.
It was exactly the same sketch. We just moved to the kid's bedroom now, so it's even a little more creepy.
At least Joey Mack had some variety in the premise and in the structure. Jesus fucking Christ.
I really don't have anything to say about this because it was pretty much the exact same sketch, except he's not interrupted this time. And so the kids go to bed after they tie him up. But Jane Curtin said they were going to be back at 11. Now, I want to see what happens when she comes back.
You know what? This sketch would almost be redeemed if they did like an MCU style like post-credit sequence where like the last sketch of the night will cut back to this and it's just Jane Curtin going in the room like, what the fuck?
Or if she's like totally oblivious to it, because now I am trying to think of like ways to make it like an actual fucking sketch. If the parents keep coming into the room and they're like completely oblivious to what's going on, at least that's something.
And something I did notice too, maybe because it's the only interesting thing to me at this point, because the pedophilia, not interesting. The evolution of Dan Aykroyd's character, where he's like much sleazier now in this one for some reason.
He fucking hates his kids.
He's like, yeah, I fucking hope you diddle these kids at this point.
Alright, yeah, man. Alright, do you want to watch the last one just to get it the fuck out of the way?
I don't, but I feel like we're obligated to.
Alright, this is from season 5, another episode hosted by Buck Henry, of course. Here's the third and final Uncle Roy sketch.
Oh, gosh, we missed you, Uncle Roy. We asked Daddy to play Invisible Leg Doctor, and he didn't even know how. Right. And Uncle Roy, remember the time we filled the bathtub all up with water and went bobbing for bananas?
I remember.
Yeah. And remember when you showed us Jumbo, the one-eared elephant? Yeah. And the time you were Ruffy, the dog, and we dewormed you?
Oh, yes. It was fun. And if I'm not mistaken, Ruffy was going to bury his bone in your backyard.
Yeah!
And we're back.
You put this on the wheel, you fucking son of a bitch.
I thought, I don't know what I was thinking. In all honesty, man, that was... there's nothing here, man. Uncle, he gets recognition applause when he first walks out this time. That was fucked up.
Jesus Christ. This is so fucking... This is... And I mean, and it's not like it's even like interesting to talk about. Like, this is also the worst episode of our podcast. Talking about the worst sketch ever produced on fucking SNL.
Yeah, I took fucking notes during that, and I'm like, what the fuck are we gonna talk about? Hey, let's go deep sea diving in Uncle Roy's pants. Yeah, that was something that was fucking done on the show in 1979. Jesus fucking Christ, man, this was fucking terrible.
This is the worst one, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean...
The glass table?
Yeah, he bought them a glass coffee table so he could have the girls sit on it and take pictures of them in their underpants. For me, it was the least offensive one, I think, for me, because it didn't focus so much on the action of diddling kids.
Well, here's the two reasons why it was the worst for me. The first, because you already get that with this being a recurring sketch. We've had 2 sketches already where we know he's fucking these kids. So the fact that there's less of it here, I mean, I already have the foreknowledge of him being a fucking diddler. But they did the thing that you suggested where Jane Curtin comes in and sees it.
Yeah.
And is oblivious, and I think it made it worse.
I know, they did what I told them to do, and it was terrible.
Because I think, and well, this is my thing. Like, I'll watch stuff, and I'll come to weird kind of like I don't know, observations or intuitions about things. Like I was just thinking recently, when you watch Mommy Dearest. And the classic line, oh, no wire hangers ever. And it's supposed to be like a funny, goofy thing. But really, it's because she had an abortion at some point, right? Like, that's the implication of that scene.
I never heard that theory.
But, like, why else would she be mad about wire hangers?
Because they're not classy. She wanted wood hangers.
I feel like that's the implication of that is she had a wire hanger abortion at some point. It's given her flashbacks. And this, when Jane Curtin's like, I know goofy panty hat game myself. To me, I read that as Uncle Roy is her brother, and he abused her and molested her when they were kids, and he's clearly an older brother, and that's why she doesn't know the distinction. She just thinks it's a game because that's what he told her when they were kids.
Oh, that's fucked up.
Isn't it? It's fucked up. This whole fucking thing is fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, I get they did at least at the the very last line where
it's a shame every family can't have an Uncle Roy. You're one in a million.
Oh, there's more of me than you might suspect.
At least that's a commentary, which the other two sketches were missing entirely.
I think if they'd done more of that, if like they'd gone really arch with it, and like every time the girls looked away, his demeanor would change, and he'd be like the devil, and they'd have like a red thing on his face, like I'm gonna fuck those kids. Like just like I don't know, that might have been something as like just a structure of a joke. But here, the only joke is, isn't it hilarious that he's gonna fuck these kids?
Yeah, and that's the problem with it. I mean, we talked about this last week when we were talking about racism and jokes. It's like, there's got to be a fucking point to it, and the point can't just be, isn't it funny that pedophilia exists? Unless that's the point. Like, I keep thinking I'm missing a point. Maybe the point is to just bring it out in the open so we're talking about it, maybe?
I don't know.
But to play it for laughs, that totally diminishes that point, if that's the point.
Would it be funnier if he was in blackface and doing a Chris Rock impression?
That would have been the capper, yeah. Here come Uncle Roy!
Oh, man. I was kind of reminded... Well, you probably have never seen... did you ever see Brass Eye? It's a British show.
No.
It was from like the 80s. I only watched it because Simon Pegg was in it. It was like an early Simon Pegg thing, and they did a special all about like pedophilia. But it was there was actually a joke to it, like a premise where it was all about the media oversaturation with like pedophile scare tactics and shit. Like pedophiles are in your neighborhood. It was like exaggerating that kind of thing. And I remember it being very funny. And Simon Pegg has this moment where he's a pedophile. They have him like in stocks, and the host is like challenging him, like, "This is my son. Do you want to fuck my son right now?" And he's like, "No, I don't." "Well, why not?" I don't fancy him, And then like the host is offended that his son isn't attractive enough to be fucked by the pedophile. And it's like I'm reminded of that because it's like it's as dark as this is, but there was like thought put into it, and there was like an actual joke there, and it's like there's just no thought put into it beyond, hey, why don't we just have a sketch about a guy who wants to fuck kids?
Yeah. Now what's the point of Uncle Roy? Well, he comes in, he takes pictures of the girls in his underwear, and he lives on to do it again. That's the point of Uncle Roy. And that's going to be in your late night comedy show for some reason.
It's going to be in my fucking nightmares from this point forward.
Yeah. Well, how about a palate cleanser?
Oh my god.
Any more thoughts on Uncle Roy? Because I'm tapped out on Uncle Roy.
I hope to God I never have a single thought about Uncle Roy ever again.
Yeah, man. Man, fuck that shit. Holy Lord. All right.
This was the most useless podcast I think we've ever recorded. We accomplished nothing.
Nope. Well, we did give us an excuse to talk about Fred Garvin, male prostitute, which is something I need right now. I can't end with that, with Uncle Roy. So, ready to dig into some Fred Garvin, male prostitute?
All right, let's do this shit.
All right.
Well, you see, ma'am, when a VIP like yourself comes to Moline to do business, it's customary for the company to send a gal up to the room. Compliments of Great Lakes Feed and Grain. And, well, since you're a gal, the company sent me, Fred Garvin, male prostitute.
Hey, wait a minute.
What?
What is all that stuff you got down there?
Oh, that's my rather elaborate network of trusses. I will need your help with a couple of these. I got the old hernia truss here. I got a spleen truss. It undoes with a couple of snaps at the back here. Go ahead.
No, I don't think I will. I think this is too much for me.
No, it's just a couple of snaps at the back. You know, you just got to make sure you don't touch the rupture. That's all.
And we're back. Well, that had nothing to do with anything, but I enjoyed it.
You know what was great about that sketch? Is all the sex and sexual situations were between two consenting adults.
Yeah,
there
Margot
were no
Kidder
children involved at all.
Margot Kidder was an of-age woman. That was nice. That was a nice little touch that the show decided to do something new with, you know? Hey, let's have two adults make love.
And it was like they went out of their way to be like, you know, I want to do this. I'm not being forced into it, but I'm not being coerced by a much older man. I mean,
yes.
There was a much older man there, but, you know, it was all above board.
Yes, and she consented, and he was not aggressive.
Yeah.
It was a completely professional exchange of sex.
Very refreshing, and altogether not what I'm used to with Saturday Night Live, which I now associate with fucking pedophilia.
Fred Garvin, male prostitute.
This was great, but probably less great because I just watched 3 Uncle Roy sketches before it.
I know, halfway through it I was like, man, I think I'd be laughing at this a lot more if I just hadn't watched 3 Uncle Roys in a row. This is a fucking classic. From the Margot Kidder episode of SNL. The hotel usually sends up a girl for all their guests, their VIP guests. But since Margot Kidder's a lady, she gets Fred Garvin, male prostitute.
And yeah, part of the joke is just every time he says his name, he looks directly at the camera, and you get the logo again, which, like, that alone says, like, this has to be a recurring character sketch. That's why I remembered it as one. And the fact that Uncle Roy got 3 sketches and this only got 1, Saturday Night Live doesn't know what the fuck it's doing with its characters.
Yeah, well, I think they did this perfectly. They did everything they could with Fred Garvin. I don't think I need to see any more. I love that he promises hygiene, discretion, and animal satisfaction. His rather elaborate network of trusses.
See, no, I want to see, because we get a reluctant, and ultimately, she ultimately doesn't go through with it. She's just sort of humoring him. I want to see a sketch where, like, there's a girl who's really into it, but, like, he can't perform because he's got an elaborate series of trusses.
That's true.
I want to see a guy, like a gay hookup. You know, I want to see, there's so many permutations. I want to see the Fred Garvin movie, frankly.
It's not too late.
Dan Aykroyd's still alive. He can still, in fact, I think it'd be funnier now with big fat Dan Aykroyd.
That I would love to see big fat Dan Aykroyd in an elaborate network of trusses.
And did any of us ever think, hey, let's do an Uncle Roy movie? No, nobody ever thought that. Nobody in the world.
Oh, yeah. His seductive poses that he does.
Oh, yeah, by now you should be hot on the... Oh, my God. Oh.
Are you sensing any symptoms of arousal? Yeah, he also talks like a used car salesman.
Yeah,
and he works with the jacket and glasses on.
He's so just earnest, and he's like your dad. And of course his pimp comes in, and it's Garrett Morris.
And I thought the pimp was gonna like rough him up, and it was gonna turn into like a, you know, fucking scene with the pimp roughing up the hooker. But I love that Garrett Morris says the pimp just came to help with the trusses.
And I like the implication that this is how Fred Garvin gets away with what he does, is just through pity. Like, his pimp always comes in right before he's like, you gotta put a good word in for me, otherwise I'm gonna get beaten. And then Garrett Morris comes in, he's like, he was great, right? And they're like, yeah, he was great. Like, I don't think he's ever actually had sex with anybody.
He's never actually had sex with a woman. He just tells them to put in a good word with Slick, his pimp.
Oh, man.
I love Garrett Morris going, I just, in the neighborhood, thought you might need some help with your trusses.
I got 8 girls and Fred.
8 girls and Fred. And then like the way this sketch handles just the grossness of sex is just miles above, I mean, anything in Uncle Roy. But like even the grossness of grossness, because when he's undoing his trusses, he's like, that's okay. You just have to don't touch the rupture. Like, that's the grossest thing I've ever heard. But I howled like I loved it. I laughed out loud.
See, and the thing about Fred Garvin, male prostitute, is he is a defined character. Like this, I have no problem imagining the writer's room and him just coming up with this on the fly. Like, hey, I had this idea. Fred Garvin, male prostitute. And everybody laughing. And yeah, we gotta do that. Meanwhile, I'm thinking of the writer's room where fucking Buck Henry's like, hey, I got this idea for Uncle Roy. Let's do this. Hey, I want to fuck your daughters. And everybody going, okay, I guess we'll do that.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that.
I mean, this makes so much sense to me, whereas that makes no fucking sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I always have to think of this era of SNL as like an era of SNL that existed before cable, before reruns. Like, I think back in this day, they would do stuff just because it was live, and it's like, we can get away with it because, no one's gonna... You can't fucking DVR it. I think that's what they said in the 70s. They were like, no one's going to DVR this. Let's do whatever we want.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, I don't know that they reran this era of SNL once there were reruns nearly as much as everything after this. I feel like I don't know. I associate the reruns of SNL with like starting in the late 80s and the 90s, like the Schneider era and and stuff like that. I don't remember, like on Comedy Central, I don't remember really ever seeing these episodes.
No. Well, when they were originally packaged for syndication, they didn't do like well at all. They cut them down to like hour-long or like maybe even half-hour-long episodes, and they sold them to syndication, and then they like tanked. So yeah, it wasn't until Comedy Central started running like the Dana Carvey years. And that's what I watched when I was a kid. But yeah, that's why I didn't have a whole lot of knowledge of the original era, because yeah, they just never showed it on TV.
So we never got the joy of Uncle Roy sketches.
I know. I could have been laughing at Uncle Roy as a 13-year-old. What would I have thought if I saw? Because I loved SNL when I was a kid. Every time there was a Comedy Central rerun of Saturday Night Live, I was fucking watching it. But yeah, it was always Dana Carvey era. I don't know what I would have thought if I saw Uncle Roy when I was 11 years old.
I think about it, and I'm ashamed to say this. I don't know that I would have even understood what was happening.
I don't think I would have either.
Like, I think I would have, I wouldn't have got it, because, like, the only part of the sketch is a thing that wouldn't have occurred to me as an 8-year-old or 11-year-old as a thing that happened. I mean, we were very sheltered in that respect. Like, I don't know that we would have understood the concept of pedophilia.
Well, you don't understand the concept of sex when you're that young. So it's like you're thinking 8 levels above that, and all the deviant shit that happens around sex, but you don't even understand the part of it that, correlates to all that.
But that's the insidious thing about Uncle Roy, because like we were very steeped in 90s era stranger danger, so we knew what pedophilia was in theory, insofar as we knew that there were theoretically these adults that were always on the prowl for kids and were going to kidnap kids in their vans and shit. But the Uncle Roy sketch is so divorced from even that characterization of pedophilia, and so it's like I don't know that, like, and maybe that's also a fault of stranger danger, that it didn't actually prepare us for, like, it's more likely going to be someone in your own family.
Right.
But like I would not have recognized this as even that.
No, I probably would have been just as oblivious as the girls in that sketch were, where I was like, oh, this is just, silly fun that Uncle Roy has. Like, yeah, the concept of pedophilia wouldn't have even occurred to me because I'm too young to fucking grasp that concept. So, yeah, watching that at a young age would have been a completely different experience.
And, it didn't even occur to me until just now. Remember how much praise Gilda Radner got for, what is it, Rosanna? What's the name?
Rosanna Dana.
Rosanna Dana. And specifically, like, oh, she's so great at capturing that exuberant energy of youth.
Oh, you're talking about Judy Miller, her brownie Girl Scout character.
Aren't they both young characters?
No, Rosanna Dana was a update character who would always, like, go on rants.
Oh, okay. I thought they were both little kids. Okay, but I remember specifically the little kid sketch where, yeah, and then they were like, oh my god, isn't it great how she's so in the mind of a child. And then I watched this sketch and, like, doesn't that just sour all of that praise? Like, yeah, and then she used that ability to do this fucking sketch.
Yeah, I would be very curious as to see, like, what was the thought behind doing it multiple times? I mean, I can understand doing it once, why the fuck not? Yeah, it's late at night, no one's watching the show, do something crazy, But to do it 3 times and just to always have the same beats of, yeah, this is where the comedy comes from. This is what the audience is laughing at. They're laughing when the girls pull up their nightgowns, show their panties, and Uncle Royce takes pictures. That's the joke. That's the funny part.
Oh, and that's where, like, I almost never blame SNL for recurring characters, because I feel like whatever else you want to say about them, they always have a sense of this is what the audience wants. And you mentioned it. They get a fucking recognition applause. Like, the audience clearly liked Uncle Roy enough to bring them back. I don't think it happens very often that a sketch bombs and nobody likes a character and they're like, we got to bring him back. I think it's always like we get the sense somehow that people are into this and we're going to bring it back, you know, justifiably, at least, you know, because there's interest. I think this is always the audience's fault, and this is the fucking worst example of it.
Yeah, now that's the creepiest thing about watching those Uncle Roy sketches is they were laughing not knowing where it was going. And it's like, I mean, watching this scene play out, you know where it's going. You know what all this is leading to, and it ain't a good place. So why are you laughing? Like, if this was, if you were watching like a Chekhov play and Uncle Roy came in and started diddling, would you be like, ha ha ha? That's hilarious. You know, you'd probably be going like, oh shit. I'm in for some dramatic, tense moments here.
I mean, maybe if it was in the context of an otherwise, like, super serious thing. Like, I'm thinking of, like, the Rodney Dangerfield scene in Natural Born Killers.
Yeah.
Like, if it was something like that, I might at least find it interesting in context. But in this context, no, it's just fucking awful. And Fred Garvin, Male Prostitute, was what I needed after that. It was so fucking good. And it even then, it was like, it was bogged down. It was like, ugh. I mean, thank you for washing the taste of that out of my mouth, but that still ruined your sketch, your good sketch.
Yeah, as is evident by the fact that we just watched Fred Garvin, Male Prostitute, but we're still talking about Uncle Roy.
I can't get it out of my fucking brain.
It's not totally cleansed from our fucking psyches. Well, transitioning from pedophilia handled poorly to pedophilia handled hilariously. Let's jump to, I think it's season 45. I don't know. I don't have my notes in front of me, but it's John Mulaney, the first time he hosted. This is a sketch called Switcheroo.
He thought being a kid was pretty tough. He thought being a dad was too. Then a witch came along, did a magic spell. And now we've got a switcheroo. No one knows her secret. Guess they'll have to keep it. What they gonna do? It's a switcheroo. Dad goes to school, son goes to work, and the son has sex with the mom. What you gonna do? It's a switcheroo.
The show was not popular. Why do you think that is?
I think viewers expected us to focus on a different aspect of the switcheroo. You know, perhaps seeing the son trying to work at his dad's office as an astronaut, or the dad trying to make the son's football team. Instead, we focused exclusively on the sexual ramifications of the switcheroo. Let's watch a clip.
Oh, we don't have to.
No, roll it.
And we're back. That was good.
That was good. I mean, and you mentioned Fred Garvin was a palate cleanser. I feel like we needed 2 palate cleansers.
Yeah. For some reason, I just watched a sketch about a son having sex with his mom. But for some reason, I'm not angry anymore.
No, in fact, I feel like a demon has been exorcised from my body, and that demon's name was Uncle Roy.
I guess I don't want to talk about it. I just want to enjoy that I watched it.
Well, just for the audience, if you want to follow along, look up the Switcheroo sketch. It's very funny. It was basically, like, it's in the age of TV show reboots like Roseanne and everything. And so they're rebooting an 80s show called Switcheroo, where a dad and a son switched bodies, like vice versa. But in this case, they focused purely on the sexual ramifications with the son in the dad's body and the mom, where they obviously would fuck.
And I remember, I don't think I've seen that sketch since the episode aired, but I remember there being more of the Switcheroo show in it. Like, I remember them going back to it a couple times, but they only do it twice, which I think is probably good. You know, brevity's the soul of wit. So you get one where you establish the premise, in the theme song.
I love that. And the son has sex with the mom.
And that's all you need. You've established the premise right there. And then you get one bit where Beck Bennett comes in as the son in the dad's body, and the mom goes up to him and says, "Tonight's the night we're going to try." And he just freezes to the camera.
Oh my God.
What you gonna do? It's a switcheroo.
Yeah, but so much of it is just the grossness of the creator, which I think was a good call, and it just gets more and more ridiculous as he describes what is essentially like, because like the premise is we're rebooting this, but it almost sounds like they're not actually rebooting it, because how could you?
Well, that's why the show is now filmed in, it was filmed in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, but even the Haitian warlords were like, no, none of this.
So now it's filmed on the site of Jonestown, the massacre.
And yeah, John Mulaney is just creepy. He's unapologetically creepy.
Well, just so oblivious to anything. It's just like perfectly natural to him.
Yeah, even when Cecily Strong asks him, do you see the original cast? And he's like, yeah, I see him every week in group. The therapist says it's good for them to confront me.
And I love, there was the one inside baseball sort of writerly joke where they're like, he's talking about his influences, and he goes, my mom, who scolded my penis with hot water every night, and of course, Mad Magazine. I feel like that's every hack writer cites Mad Magazine as their inspiration.
Why put everyone through this again?
I think you're asking me why I like to make America laugh. Well, like most artists, I'm a product of my influences. I love Lucy, Dick Van Dyke, my mom who would wash my penis with scalding hot water, and of course, Mad Magazine.
Yeah, that was good. And that had to have been something Mulaney had in his back pocket for a while, because the first episode he hosted was jam-packed with, like, pure John Mulaney premises, which was great. I loved it. It was, like, my favorite episode in, like, a long time. I was like, holy shit, the show's great again. And then, of course, some jackass host the next week, and I'm like, oh, fuck this shit.
Well, and I know he was a writer on the show. He was never head writer, was he?
No.
Okay. Because I think he was a writer when Seth Meyers was the head writer, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if this was a sketch that he pitched as a writer, and they went, no, we can't fucking do that. And then he came back as host and went, yeah, we're fucking doing that.
Yeah, I think that was all John Mulaney's first episode. It was just like, all the sketches you said, there's no way we can do it. Well, I'm host now, and I got some sway.
And did they do, because I know they did a runner eventually of like the musical sketches, that I never liked any of them.
I liked the first one. I thought it had diminishing returns after that.
But yeah, I don't remember, did they do that in this episode, do you know?
Yeah, his first episode, it started with the Diner Lobster, which was a sketch I loved, and yeah, then they did it the next 3 times he hosted with like different incarnations, and I was like, all right, we get it.
But we're not here to talk about the John Mulaney episode, because we didn't watch that. We just watched this sketch. And yeah, I don't have much to say about it. It's great. Look it up. Watch it. Watch the sketch with The Rock and the molester robot. And you know what you should never fucking ever watch? Uncle Roy.
Yeah, man. But that's just like a testament to, like, nothing is off limits in comedy. There's no taste that's too bad. It's all in the way you handle it. And Uncle Roy handled it poorly. Switcheroo handles it deftly.
Well, you say there's no limits in comedy. Yes, in terms of content, correct. But how you do it does matter. And in a moralistic, not just in terms of like it has to be funny, there is a morality to it. There is a point where you have to say, doing it badly isn't just, the worst thing isn't just that it's not funny. It is morally sickening when you get it wrong. If you're going to walk that tightrope and you fail, even if you're Michael O'Donoghue or not, when you fall, it's not just that you made an unfunny sketch. You made an offensively bad sketch, and a sketch that it might just be offensive. Comedy can still be offensive, and justifiably so. To say that I'm offended by the Uncle Roy sketch, I don't think that makes me like a prude. I think if you're not offended by that sketch, your mind isn't fucking right. And yeah, maybe there was a way to do it, or at least do something with that same subject matter that was funny. We saw sort of a version of it with the Switcheroo sketch, but the way they did it, if you're like, yeah, that's perfectly acceptable, no, you're fucking wrong.
Yeah. No, it's all in the way you handle it. And yeah, I get just one last thing about Uncle Roy, which I've probably said before, but like, the sketch never condemns him. Ever.
No.
None of those three sketches ever condemned him. If anything, it made him look like a fun hero. And with the audience laughter on top of that, it almost justified his actions and behaviors as if they were appropriate.
Well, it's like, on my other podcast, Nate and I, we were talking about our best and worst movies, and we talked about Dear Evan Hansen. The problem with that movie isn't that he's this weird liar who's like manipulating his family. The problem is the movie thinks he's the hero for doing it. And Uncle Roy's the sketch. Uncle Roy isn't necessarily a villain.
Yeah, and in the John Mulaney sketch, it was obvious that he was in the wrong to everyone. Like, that's the premise of the sketch, is that this guy created something so horrible that we as the audience can laugh at it because it's coming from this horrible person.
Well, that's the thing. The sketch works because of Cicely Strong's reactions, where she's getting increasingly horrified with every answer. That's why it's funny. And yeah, there's no character like that in the Uncle Roy sketch, and I think that's the point of the Uncle Roy sketch, is him getting away with it. But again, I think even if you added that character, I don't know that it would make it better.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any fix in Uncle Roy. But anything else until I have the wheel pulled up.
I don't have anything else. Fucking, if there's anything worse than Uncle Roy on this wheel, then we're retiring the fucking wheel.
Oh yeah, man. I put Uncle Roy on the list. I thought it would be good. That was my mistake.
It's so funny that we did the wheel last time, and we rolled it a couple times, and I believe one time we rolled the Emoji Movie, and I was like, oh fuck, I don't want to watch that. I guess we're watching Uncle Roy. I wish I never thought I would ever say these words. I wish we'd fucking watch the Emoji Movie.
I could watch the Emoji Movie right now.
I could.
All right. Well, speaking of the Emoji Movie, it is on the wheel, so let me spin this wheel and see what I get. Now, Ben doesn't see the wheel anymore because he doesn't like screen sharing with me over Skype.
I don't care. It's when you do it, your fucking computer freezes because you have a shitty old laptop.
Well, then this is just for me because I spun the wheel and I got Gays in Space.
Fuck you! Fuck you! No!
You don't want to watch the 3 sketches of Gays in Space?
I don't want to do another recurring character sketch for the next episode. I just don't.
Alright.
And apparently they're all shit. Everyone you put on here was shit. You didn't tell me that before.
I put on the good ones. Gays in Space would be a fun one to talk about. Ooh, okay. I rolled a movie. Any interest in The Wraith?
Is that's like a killer car movie, isn't it?
I think so. It stars Charlie Sheen and Randy Quaid's in it.
I mean, I'm up at this. It's an impossible ask because at this point I'm up for anything. Nothing can be worse than Uncle Roy. So if you want to throw out a fucking shitty 80s movie with Charlie Sheen where I believe he turns into a car, fuck it, I'll take it.
Is that what it's about?
I think, or maybe he comes back to life as a car. It's something to do with like a killer car, and I think somebody's a ghost. That's all I know about that movie.
All right, hold on. Let me do a quick little look up on The Wraith because I did not look it up of what it was before I put it on the wheel.
I think I watched the trailer for it, and if I remember correctly, Charlie Sheen dies and comes back as either a killer car or maybe the driver of a killer car.
That is what the movie's about. A mysterious man spirit descends from the sky and manifests in a sports car and targets a local violent road racing gang of motorheads headed by a ruthless bully who'll do anything to get what he wants.
I didn't hear any part of that description that said, and then he fucks a bunch of little girls with impunity. So I feel like we can watch it at least. I mean, if you want to re-roll, it's up to you, but...
I don't know. Clint Howard's in it? Sherilyn Fenn?
I vaguely remember, I think the reason I know anything about it might have been a How Did This Get Made movie.
Oh, is it Notoriously Bad?
I think so. I think either How Did This Get Made or some other bad movie podcast. I know I've heard about it on that.
Alright, well, I'll leave it up to you. Reroll or The Wraith?
Let's leave it as an option, but re-roll. Just give us one more option.
Alright, one more option. If this is better than The Wraith, then we will do that. If it's worse than The Wraith, we will do that. I think you just like spinning the wheel.
Well, I mean, if it's worse than The Wraith, I say we just watch Uncle Roy again.
What else is on the... Alright, I think The Wraith is more, exciting for me than Dickie Roberts' former child star.
I mean, I would argue Dickie Roberts' former child star is more relevant to our podcast because it's a David Spade vehicle, and I think it has the possibility of being like fucking the porn star movie. I keep blocking it from my brain. What is it called?
Bucky Larson?
I think it has the potential to be like Bucky Larson bad. So I actually am kind of interested in seeing that.
I could watch it. I mean, yeah, I put it on the list because I was like, I've never seen that movie.
I think I might have rented it and seen some of it years ago when it was out. Because we had like this Blockbuster pass where like if you got so many movies a week, it was basically like free. And so I think I rented that and then like turned it off like 5 minutes in.
All right. Well, I'll leave it up to you.
I'm saying Dickie Roberts. I'm saying Dickie Roberts. I don't know how interesting The Wraith is actually going to be. I think it's just going to be a bad B movie. Dickie Roberts, I think it has the potential to be bad in a way that will make for a good podcast. And at the very least, we can talk about David Spade.
I guess, yeah. Every time we watch, well, the only David Spade movies we watched have been his like shitty Netflix comedies.
Well, I
like
mean,
Father of the Year.
We did watch Senseless, which I don't remember if that was an interesting episode or not.
I know I didn't like that movie.
I mean, I think we watched 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag because of David Spade.
Oh yeah, I did like that one. I mean, I didn't like it, but I liked talking about
and
it.
And there's Lost and Found, there's PC, there's some David Spade movies that I think would make for good podcasts.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure both of those are on the wheel too. Lost and Found and whatever the other one you mentioned was.
PCU is the other one I mentioned.
PCU. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I put that on the wheel.
I say let's go Dickie Roberts and just see what happens.
All right. Now, so that it has been decided. For next week, we will be watching Dickie Roberts, former child star, starring SNL alum David Spade.
All right. Can't be any worse. I mean, I don't know that he doesn't fuck kids in this movie. It could be worse.
Maybe there is some pedophilia action in Dickie Roberts. But yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say now.
I think that the podcast is over and we're done.
Oh yeah, I guess I could just say the podcast is over.
I can stop thinking about Uncle Roy.
Dickie Roberts, former child star, for Mr. David Spade next week. Until we see you again, get off the shed.